Testing. Oh, there I am. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming, and I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Rent Stabilization Board to order on October 17th, 2019. So, Amy, can we do roll call, please?
Sorry about that. Commissioner Alpert.
Present.
Chang.
Here.
Poblet. Here. Zalaski.
Here.
Simon Weisberg. Here. Sotomayor.
Yes.
Tregu.
Present.
Laverde.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, so let's move to the second item on the agenda, the approval of the agenda. Would anyone like to move it? Alpert? One second, please, Executive Director Talikian.
I just wanted to announce that item number 5 will be moved to the November meeting because of a conflict in schedule, so which we found out about, so we will not be receiving that this evening. You still have the report in there, so if you have questions, I'm more than happy to take those. If I can answer them, happy to, but if not, we can also, I can alert Brian Augusta, and he'll be prepared to address them, and also if there are any other changes, because the report was written prior to the end of the signing period for the governor, so you'll probably get an updated report in November.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Commissioner Alpert.
I would move the agenda with the following modifications, moving item 5 to the consent calendar, given that report from the director, and then also items 8A2, 3, 4, and 6. And then Commissioner Simon Weisberg, I know I wasn't at the IRA AGA committee. Was it your intention that we discuss item 5, or do you think it can be moved to consent?
Item 5 is the framework.
If you don't mind, I would prefer that we discuss it.
Okay, then my motion won't have it be moved to consent.
So you said items number 8A2, 3,
8A2, 3, 4, and 6.
and 6.
And then also item 5.
And I also would like to make just one brief comment regarding item 4.
I can modify my motion to leave it on action?
Yes, please.
Okay, then I'll do that.
Second.
Thank you.
And
Go ahead, Commissioner Tregu.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would also like to see if we could adjourn the meeting in memory of Michael Deal, and sadly, as of this morning, also the Honorable Elijah Cummings.
Yes, by all means. Okay, I just want to confirm then. Then for consent calendar, we're going to do 8A2, Amy, 3, we'll do 4 with comment, and then item 6.
And also 5.
And, no, we're going to be talking about 5.
Item 5, not 8A5, but 5, the whole special credit.
Oh, yeah, item 5, yes, thank you.
I'm just going to repeat that for clarity since there's been so many changes. So item 5 is being held over to the November meeting. We are moving, the proposal is to move item 8A2, 8A3, 8A4, and 8A6 to consent. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Commissioner Tregu.
And I'm sorry, I've just been informed that Frank Olken, a friend to many of us, has passed away, and I'd like to add that we adjourn the meeting in honor of him as well. Frank Olken.
Holkin, H-O-L-K-I-N?
O-L-K-E-N.
E-N, and then was it Michael Deal, you said?
Michael Deal,
Is it D-I-E-H-L?
T-I-E-H-L, correct?
And the Honorable Elijah Cummings, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, great. So it's 7:30 now, so we could actually probably go to our first appeal, correct?
I have 7:29, so if you want to approve the consent calendar.
Yes, well, so let's approve the consent calendar?
Why waste a minute?
Yes, that's right, I'm sorry.
We also have to do
So
public
moved.
forum.
So moved, okay. Consent calendar, and do we have we approve the, does anyone want to approve the meeting, the minute meetings for the September 19th
Oh,
agenda?
they're on the consent calendar. I did note, if we can modify the minutes, there was a misspelling of the governor's name. It's Newsom without an E at the end.
Got it. Okay, so approve the minutes with that change?
Yeah.
Okay. Excuse me? Yes, hold on. Okay, so actually, we do need to go to public comment. Thank you. I would like to take public comment now for anything that is not dealing with the candidates. So if we have anyone here who wants to do public comments,
The only card I have is one of the candidates at this point.
okay, okay. So no public comment? Seeing that? So now let's go to our first appeal. I'm in such a hurry, and I'm so excited about this, so, okay, so let's take a vote, I'm sorry, for the consent calendar. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No.
Motion carries.
Okay, so moved. Okay. So we're going to call the first case of the appeal. It's case number RWN 1635 Grizzly Peak, 1354 Grizzly Peak Boulevard. Okay, so do we have both parties here?
No, we're the tenants. The landlord is not here.
Okay. So, so this is how it works, and then we'll see. So, before the discussion of the appeal, each party and the representatives will have 7 minutes to address the board. At the beginning of the hearing, we'll follow in this order. The appellant has 5 minutes, and the respondents have 7 minutes, and then the appellant again has another 2 minutes. But before we go into that, we'll have the Councilor Brown will discuss the case and provide us some information on the case, and then we'll go into the comments, and then we'll discuss.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. The landlord appellant also submitted a response to the legal staff's recommendation, and I'll reserve comment on that, given that they're not here to represent themselves. But I'll go ahead and proceed with the summary. And if there are any questions about the response, which I sent to the board last week, I'm happy to answer that. So the landlord appellant challenges a hearing examiner decision that the subject property is operated as a rooming house and must be registered with the board accordingly. The subject property is comprised of 3 bedrooms on the main level, a 4th bedroom in the basement level, and a converted garage that was rented separately as a 5th bedroom. Tenants Mark Remek, apologies if I'm mispronouncing that, Caleb Fitzgerald and Kyle Lane filed RWN 1635 on November 5th, 2018. Landlord appellant Nikos Daphnis does not dispute that he rented the property to 5 separate tenants on 5 separate leases, and in fact increased rents upon vacancies of individual rooms, which would not have been permissible had the property been rented as an undivided group living arrangement. After the filing of this petition, Mr. Daphnis notified the tenant in the converted garage that she should move out of the garage unit and into a different bedroom that had become vacant. Although Mr. Daphnis claims that the reason for his efforts to take the garage unit off the market was, quote, disrepair, the hearing examiner found Mr. Daphnis's testimony unpersuasive. According to Mr. Daphnis, the fact that the tenant moved out of the converted garage caused the individual leases with each tenant to become combined into an undivided group living arrangement, regardless of the tenant's intent or knowledge of that result. Tenant respondents disagree and claim that the removal of the fifth bedroom was done without their consent. They did not agree to change their housing situation into what would ordinarily be a, quote, mutually agreed upon group living arrangement. The hearing examiner's decision is based upon the central fact that the landlord made separate leases with 5 separate tenants for 5 separate bedrooms in the property, which of course is the baseline requirement for a rooming house in a single-family home. Legal staff recommends that the board uphold the decision on that fact alone. It is unnecessary to interrogate the intent of the landlord, so long as the intent of the tenants to remain in a rooming house situation is clear. Absent an agreement between the tenants to combine their households, the landlord cannot impose a new living situation in which, among other things, formerly individual tenants become jointly and severally liable for another's rent. This is central to the very rooming house rule itself. Otherwise, landlords could switch in and out of rooming house status by merely leaving certain rooms empty during the time period when they preferred to treat the property as a group living accommodation and escape rent control. The board should uphold the hearing examiner's ruling because the factual basis for the decision was established upon the relative weight and credibility of the evidence in the record, and the board should defer to the hearing examiner's judgment of that evidence, and because there is no legal requirement that the board recognize the landlord's efforts to unilaterally change the tenant's contracts for the purpose of avoiding the rent stabilization and eviction for good cause ordinance.
Thank you. Okay, so seeing that the appellant is not here, we have the respondents. So you'll have 7 minutes to talk about your case. Can you please introduce yourself individually? If you can share, I think there might be a microphone there, so if you can use that microphone, but make sure you speak clearly into the microphone. Please give your names, and you'll have 7 minutes to talk about your case.
Testing?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Mark Remick. I have been living on the property since August of 2014, and I don't really have much to add. I think the hearing examiner's decision was correct, and I agree entirely with the legal team's assessment of the situation. In their response to the legal team's decision, I just want to point out they did make a few misstatements of fact. One glaring misstatement is the suggestion that the garage was only occupied for a brief time. Since I moved in August of 2014, the garage has been continuously occupied by various tenants. People have moved in and out, and there was never any expression of desire for the garage to be vacated until the petition was submitted. And moreover, as the tenant who was forced out of the garage stated in her letter in the original hearing, the landlord explicitly said that because of the petition, the city would come inspect the garage, find that it was an illegal unit, and throw her out of the garage, which is, of course, completely factually incorrect. So I just wanted to clear that up, and beyond that, I have nothing else to add.
Go ahead.
Hi,
Can you give your name, please?
Yeah, I'm Caleb Fitzgerald. I also just want to say that we agree with the legal staff's analysis and the hearing examiner's decision. At the time that the petition was filed, we had 5 separate rooms with 5 separate leases, remained in that state up until even past the time the original hearing was scheduled. The landlord requested a continuance, and so the hearing didn't take place until, I believe it was June of the next year, 7 months after we filed the petition.
You don't have to keep holding, just as soon as you see the light on, it's on.
So at the time that we filed the petition, we had 5 separate rooms with 5 separate leases, and we were in a rooming house situation. That hasn't been contested by the landlord at all. He just claims that because he took one of the rooms off the market, that now he should be able to take us out of a rooming house situation and take away our rent control rights. I think that the legal staff is right when they say that overturning this decision would create a loophole where landlords would be able to move in and out of a rooming house situation at will. He could increase the rent now and then go back to renting out that room later. So I think in this situation, the law should be interpreted in such a way that the tenants have to agree to move out of a rooming house situation. I think that's all I have to say.
Hi, my name's Kyle Lane. Just wanted to hop in here for a quick second as well and say that I agree with your hearing examiner's original decision as well. Surprised that the landlord hasn't shown up, but that being said, I agree with Mr. Remick and Mr. Fitzgerald here and their decision, what they've said, and as well as the legal team's decision on that. Well, their advice. Cool. Thank you, guys.
Go ahead. You still have 343 left.
Also, I don't know if this is relevant in any way, but at the landlord's request, I met with him earlier today, and I did remind him that we had this hearing at 7:30 today, so if that's relevant.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'd like to add one other thing. The converted garage was not an ordinary garage. Someone wasn't just living in a bare garage. There were 2 extra walls constructed in the garage to separate the bedroom from the rest of the garage, and a heater was installed. So it was suitable for living in. It wasn't just a dirty garage that someone was living in. It was actually a bedroom that had been rented out for at least 4 years.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners, we can discuss now. Commissioner Tregu.
I move the staff recommendation.
Second.
Sorry, was that Poblete as the second?
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? So moved. I do want to add a comment. To me, what was really telling in this case for me is the fact that they had 5 separate leases on this, and for me, that was a big decision. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Gentlemen.
Okay. So now we can move on to our second appeal. Do we have the parties here for the appeal on,
It's not 8 o'clock.
it's not 8 o'clock? So, Commissioner Chang.
I would, if the chair is okay with that, can we go out of order and actually do item number 5 on, item?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes,
You know
let's
which
do that. That's great. Thank you very much for that recommendation. So let's move
Action
to,
5.
let me go to the agenda. Let's go to item 8A5. Yes, 5. It's a recommendation to support the Housing for a Diverse, Equitable, and Creative Berkeley, the framework with a minor modification. This is being referred to us by the IRA AGA Registration Committee, and this is regarding the framework that Berkeley wants to promote. So I'm going to let the vice chair, who's the chair of the IRA committee, lead this discussion.
Thank you. So I just wanted to, I hope that folks do read the framework, and I, felt that while I supported what has already been put forward, it seemed that there were some additional things that we could be doing locally that Berkeley still has legislation that they could pass that would strengthen it and enforcement. And so we laid out those different pieces. So the plan is that we will combine the letter that the chair drafted with the additional 4 points. The reason I wanted it not just to go directly to consent is that I know many of us are on additional commissions, and I wanted to just really make sure people were aware of those additional 4 things. So when people ask us, are there additional things we could do in terms of strengthening rent control, that people are aware.
Go ahead, Commissioner Alpert.
Would Commissioner Simon Weisberg, do you think you'd be willing to draft, like strike through redlined amendments to the framework to present to council with the changes that you'd suggested?
I would. I mean, the 4 points have already been provided to the drafter.
Okay.
And they said that they are going to include them. But I can reach out to them to see if they need additional. But I think we were going to do a formal letter that includes those 4 points.
I don't usually, the 4 points are included, but the language specifically to put in the framework isn't. So I don't know if
Oh,
that would
I
be
see.
productive for us to authorize you to draft
Yeah, I can do that.
actual substantive amendments to the framework to present them to the.
So like the paragraph form, so it fits into it. Yes, I would be happy to do that.
Then I would suggest that we authorize the commissioner to take that action.
Is that a motion?
Sure. For the purposes of discussion, approve the item with the addition that we authorize Commissioner Simon Weisberg to draft language to modify the framework with the 4 points and present it along with the letter.
And I'll second that.
That's Commissioner Chang seconding that. Your comment, Commissioner Trego?
Yeah, I just have another suggestion for your consideration, and it doesn't have to be part of the motion, but I appreciated the recommendations. I think the background section could also restate those recommendations and provide some additional analysis as to why they're needed.
Oh.
I think that would be beneficial for the
So
council to receive
add
as well.
that,
Yeah, just beef up the background to include these 4 recommendations, and if possible, just 1 or 2 sentences apiece on why they're important.
So I think, may I
Yeah,
respond
go
back?
ahead.
Sorry.
Yes.
I think that, so the structure of the framework is basically background and then opportunities. And so I would use that structure. Is that okay?
Yes,
I wouldn't
absolutely.
actually, because the background for the rent control part is different.
Yeah.
So I would do it differently.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I said that we incorporate kind of what the IRA approved, it was the 4 pieces, not so much the rest of it. I mean,
Yeah.
meaning that the letter would be, we're asking that these 4 things.
Understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm friendly to that.
Yes, that's fine. So shall we vote on this? We need to
If I could have the mover or the seconder restate the motion.
Sure. So the mover is Commissioner Alpert.
The motion is to approve the recommendation with the amendment that the board authorizes Commissioner Simon Weisberg to draft amendments to the framework as outlined in the suggestion of the board. And also, could you, Commissioner Trego,
It could just be incorporated as outlined. by the
and to
suggestions
also
of
expand
board.
the outline in the report.
Opportunities, yes.
Is that clear?
Yes.
Awesome.
And the seconder was Commissioner Chang.
Correct.
Those are definitely accepted, but I would like to make comments if that's okay.
I'm sorry, what?
I would like to make comments if that's okay.
Go ahead and make your comment.
Sure. First of all, Most Commissioner Simon Weisberg, I want to, thank you for actually pulling this item, well, not pulling, keeping this item on action so we can have a discussion on it because I do have comments. And second of all, I want to thank you for your leadership on this. It's really appreciated, especially on the renters' rights aspect. And I actually do hope everybody perhaps makes a few statements because I'm actually very excited about this. I think this is the first time a lot of people who care about affordable housing, a lot of people who care about what the housing policy looks like that is meant to be inclusive for the future. I think this is such a great moment because it's a moment in which we have a vision for the future, a framework for the future. So I'm personally very excited for this, and I'm really glad that this form of vision is also done through a community process, is done through one in which it's written by leaders, but it's also gone through different committees, such as the Housing Advisory Committee, and it's now currently being vetted by the our rent board committees and also by tenants' rights leaders and commissioners on this board. So I'm very happy with this community process, and I'm very happy to be standing by this type of vision. And I do want to encourage my colleagues on the board to. I know we're all going to support this, but to share that sentiment, and I think this is a good time to share those type of sentiments.
Thank you very much. Anyone else want to comment? So go ahead, Commissioner Traeger, and then I'll put myself in the queue afterwards.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I wanted to thank the commission for its support. So the Housing Advisory Commission did vote to recommend this framework, and the Measure O committee is going to be voting on it on Monday. My personal hope is that we will join the HAC and the rent board in doing so. This is a really exciting document. I think this is the most progressive framework on housing that I have seen anywhere in the nation. And I think I appreciate Vice Chair Simon Weisberg's comments and suggestions. I think they make this even stronger. I encourage everyone who feels as passionately about this document as I do to show up to the City Council. They're going to be voting on it as early as the middle of next month. And it will be very, very important that they hear from the community. Thank you.
So I'm putting myself in the queue. I'm also very happy with this framework because it does provide an overview, a roadmap for all the committees and the boards within the city who actually have some authority. HAC has some authority. They can decide what housing is built. And so they have now a framework to make their decisions. ZAB will also, I believe, be able to take a look at this. So I really think it's great that now they have someone, a guidance. They have a document to guide themselves on their decisions, which is really important. It is also, I'd like to say, the mission of the rent board is to support, actually, where's my mission statement? Is to support housing and city recommendations to be able to protect people of color, children, disabled people, and this is helping us, the board approving this is helping us to live that mission, although so much more needs to be done, so much more, because all our protections, everything has been eroded, and so at least this is something that will allow the city leaders to be able to make a guidance and actually make a reality of we have a plan, we can follow this plan, and we can make this a reality for affordability for the people in Berkeley, especially now that we're going to have the Adeline Corridor development. So this is really going to be an important document for the committees to follow. Thank you. Okay, that being said, let's take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, measure passes. One thing I wanted to mention, and in item 8A4, I said we did put that on consent, but I wanted to mention about, it's our recommendation that we are sending to HUD regarding, thank you, regarding the attachment to HUD to express opposition to the proposed changes of the Federal Register. Basically, HUD is currently requesting comments on proposed rule changes which would limit the use of disparate impact theory of housing discrimination. And disparate impact occurs where a facially neutral policy or practice has an adverse impact on a protected class, such as people of color, persons with disabilities, or families with children. Given that many housing providers no longer advertise their intent to exclude protected classes, disparate impact is a critical legal tool needed to expose housing discrimination that is often hidden. And right now, HUD is looking to change that. And we are writing a letter in opposition to that because Here in Berkeley, the housing anti-discrimination policy was actually born out of Berkeley. Our representative, Byron Rumsford, in 1963, was the one who created the anti-discrimination law. He was an assembly member, actually Northern California's first African-American assembly member, and the law passed. But landlords were not and were in favor of it, and so they appealed it to the California Supreme Court, and it was approved, and I mean, it won, and not satisfied, the property owner associations took it all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, where it was upheld, and that's why right now we have an anti-discrimination law in the United States, and it was because of Byron Rumsfeld. And now there's an effort to dismantle all those protections that were so hard fought 51 years ago. So we are sending a letter letting HUD know that the Rent Board in Berkeley opposes these changes. Thank you. Oh, Katie. So it is 7:54, and we still are going to go see, let's see.
Oh, move the item.
Yeah, okay. It was on consent.
Oh, you just wanted to discuss it.
I just
Okay.
wanted to discuss it because Byron Mumford was a representative in Berkeley, and I think we should mention him and talk about what he did in the struggle for housing that he fought so hard for. So we've got. Yeah, we can take a 5-minute break. Oh. Okay, so let's take a 5-minute break, and then we'll take our next appeal. Okay? Thank you.
In the meantime, do you want to just... You know the drill. Okay, so it's right here. And I'll get you some water.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting back to order. Okay, thank you, everyone, for coming back. Okay, so now it's 8 o'clock, so now we can take our second appeal. It's appeal case T5717 on 472 Kentucky Avenue. Okay. So we have the respondents here, I believe. So if you want to take your seats, please.
Chair, I unfortunately have to recuse myself, so I'll be stepping out.
Okay, thank you.
Turn your mic off. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I read this before, but I'll read it again. Before the board discusses the appeal, each party or their representatives will have 7 minutes to address the board at the beginning of the hearing in the following order. The appellant has 5 minutes, the respondent has 7 minutes, and the appellant again has 2 minutes. And so before we go to that, we are going to get a report from our counselor, Counselor Brown.
Thank you. 1 second, please. This is an appeal of a hearing examiner's decision that the tenants are entitled to a rent reduction for illegally high rent and reduction of space and services. The basis of the decision is the basis of this decision is a prior decision in RWN 1608, which found that the property is not an owner-occupied duplex and therefore does not qualify for the golden duplex exemption. The rent reduction totals $9,489.86, of which $2,912.90 is illegally high rent charged between October 2014 and December 2017, and $6,576.96 is a reduction for decreased services related to the denial of access to the laundry room, garage storage, backyard, deck, and hot tub. On appeal, landlord appellant argues that the board should overturn the decision in RWN 1608, which is not an issue here. According to the landlord appellant, she resides in the studio unit below the main house, which was formerly rented out to the tenants, and which was found not to be her residence in RWN 1608. Furthermore, the hearing examiner found that the property is categorically ineligible for the owner occupancy exemption for duplexes because the studio unit was not constructed with permits and/or is not legally permitted to be used as a dwelling unit. The unit was therefore subject to rent control for the duration of the Wagner's tenancy, and increases that exceeded the applicable AGAs are illegally high rents. Legal staff agrees. A week after the tenants filed their prior petition, RWN 1608, landlord appellant wrote to the tenants and threatened to evict them if they did not remove their belongings from the garage where they had been stored for 5 years. Within a month, landlord appellant had constructed a partition that denied the tenants access to the laundry room and the backyard area, which included the deck and the hot tub. Landlord appellant's explanation for these actions is that she claims that she would have permitted the tenants access to the laundry upon 30 minutes notice, and that she did not believe that the tenants ever used the deck and laundry room. She also claims that the lease did not give the tenants permission to use the garage, although she concedes that she gave them permission to use it as storage at the time that they were moving in. Legal staff recommends that you affirm the hearing examiner's decision in full. Now, as you know, landlord appellant has requested a continuance of this hearing because she's out of town. Landlord appellant did not notify staff of her travel plans when she appealed, and legal staff has informed her that she may send a representative in her stead. You have before her her formal request for a continuance. Though I did not include an extended conversation that I had with her in writing regarding her right to send either an attorney or a non-attorney representative. Given the appeal backlog that I notified you of last month, we recommend that the request for continuance be denied. However, before hearing from the respondents, I think that you should decide on that motion, and then if you decide to continue it, obviously, the parties will have to come back, and if you decide to hear it tonight, then you can go forward with the respondents' time.
Okay, thank you. So well, why don't we take a vote on that? All
Well,
those,
somebody needs to make a motion one way or the other, and there should be
make a
discussion
motion.
if they want.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Solosky,
I move that we hear the appeal tonight.
I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Motion
Okay.
carries. Okay.
So let's listen. You're going to have 7 minutes to be able to talk about your case. Can you please give your name and make sure your microphone is on? The little red light should be on.
Green.
Can you hear me?
Oh, green. I have mine first.
All right. I just have a brief statement. My name is Jeremy Wagner. This is Heidi Wagner, formerly of 472 Kentucky Avenue. Also, Anya Wagner is here. I just have a brief statement. Commissioners, we agree with the legal counsel's recommendation that the decision be upheld. The hearing officer had ample evidence and testimony upon which to base his decision. It bears mentioning that the landlord has sought every opportunity to delay and or appeal the decisions of this board. As a result, this matter is being concluded more than 2 years after our initial filing. The landlord has used these delays to prolong a campaign of harassment and intimidation against our family that ultimately succeeded in constructively evicting us from the property. With that, we feel the commissioners have the necessary information to rule on the appeal of T5717. We agree with the recommendations in the memorandum made to the members of the board and urge the board to affirm the hearing examiner's decision. We would also like to take this opportunity to publicly thank the Rent Board's staff for their professionalism and assistance in navigating what has been a long and complex process. In particular, the Rent Board's housing counselors have been extraordinarily patient in explaining the ordinance and our potential rights under applicable laws in a way that has been clear and respectful, responsive to our situation while consistently conducting themselves in a professional, unbiased manner. Their exemplary neutrality has given us faith in this process through a very difficult 2 years. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, who would like to lead the discussion?
For discussion purposes and/or let's do it, I'm going to motion to uphold the hearing examiner's decision.
Second.
You second already?
Was that Tregu?
Commissioner,
Okay.
so moved by
It's Chang.
Commissioner Chang and seconded by Commissioner Solosky.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And I want to say I'm really sorry that's taken so long and it's been so hard. Okay. So it's 8:10, so I believe, let's see. We can now move on to our,
I told her the public forum was over, but she just wants to speak about a non-board item, and I wanted to, I told her it was up to you.
okay, because we do have some time. So actually, I'm going to allow for a public comment, because seeing that we had no one earlier. So Leah Naomi Gonzalez,
Should we call Leah back in?
yes, actually.
Someone went to get her.
Can somebody,
Oh, okay.
Leah?
It looks like.
Igor went.
Yes, but is Leah Naomi Gonzalez here?
Oh, she was, sorry.
Maybe she stepped into the restroom?
She might be out in the courtyard. Let me go.
Things are moving quite quickly. Oh. Okay, Ms. Gonzalez, thank you very much. You have 3 minutes to address.
I just wanted to come in and give you guys an update on our situation. I feel that I should make sure everybody in Berkeley that works for Berkeley knows, because it's just that imperative. Thank you. So I kind of wrote it down because my child's asleep and he's sick right now. So the city manager chose not to respond to me about the discrimination complaint. And she then furthered that by my housing voucher being not renewed on the 14th. So I no longer even have a housing voucher. I also met another parent. His child goes to school with my child, and he got accepted for the exact same apartment building with a housing voucher in the exact same month I was applying. And he just had to downsize himself. So he has a 2-bedroom voucher because he has a daughter. He has a Section 8 voucher, and he took a studio apartment at the same price of a 2-bedroom, which is illegal. If you have a child that's of the opposite sex, you're supposed to have 2 bedrooms so the child can grow up in their own space, which is what I have, a 2-bedroom, and I have a boy. And if I had compromised, maybe I would have gotten an apartment. I don't know. Nobody told me I should compromise. So we don't have a housing voucher now. We're still in our tent. The police came today and said that they were going to have to take it and take me to jail. The unspoken part is take my child. There is no resolution that the city manager and the mayor are giving us. There just isn't. They're not going to let us get housed here. So I know that this isn't technically your jobs, but you guys are the city of Berkeley. And this is your home too. So I felt everybody should know. Okay? And thank you for your support. You've been a very good friend, and let's just try to change something in Berkeley, even if it doesn't happen for my child and I. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. You guys have a good night.
Okay. Okay, so now we're going to go to the process for filling the board vacancy. So currently, we have a situation that we first need to talk and get a vote on with the board members. We have a situation where one of the candidates has a family emergency and has to be out of Berkeley, and so they have requested to call in. This is not something that we usually do in these processes, but this is a unique situation. And so I would want to ask you and just decide if we want to allow this candidate to be able to present themselves over the phone. Commissioner Tragum.
Thank you, Chair, for framing the discussion as you did. I move that we allow Christine Schwartz, is that the candidate, to be able to participate telephonically. I am quite aware of the set of circumstances that she is dealing with right now. They are related to family needs, and she physically cannot be present. So this is not her asking for special dispensation from us. And us granting it is in order in this case. If she had the opportunity to, she would be here in person.
Yeah, this is an extraordinary situation. Does anyone want to second this?
Second.
Oh, so all those in favor? Oh, Commission.
I have some proposed language, just so that we're clear about whether we're setting precedent. So if I can show that to you and see if it's acceptable, or shall I read it?
Sure, please.
Because we just want to be clear what the board's policy and practice is, because in the past we haven't done this. This is also something that it's also for the board's convenience so that they can hear from a candidate, which is my understanding of why the board's considering it. So my suggested motion would be that the board allow individual candidates to participate remotely in tonight's meeting. This is specific to tonight's meeting and only to the board vacancy item, and should not be interpreted as the board's establishment of a rule which universally allows remote participation by the public. Decisions regarding these issues should be decided on a case-by-case basis.
Sounds good to me. Couldn't have said it any better myself.
Me either, Matt wrote it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so, so this is how it's going to work. All prospective candidates.
Oh, we
So you need to vote on the
We need to
motion.
vote? Oh, my gosh,
And-
okay.
And just to be clear, that is now Tragub's proposed motion, is that correct?
Yes.
And
Correct.
Septa Hill's second, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. No one opposed? No. Okay,
Motion
so
carries.
it moves.
Thank you.
So if the executive director, are you going to be calling Ms. Schwartz?
When we get to her, yes. so-
Sure. Okay, great. Thank you very
so
much.
she's watching, so it'll just be to make her statement.
Commissioner Alpert?
Has her card been submitted into the random lottery?
No,
Not yet. So once we,
Okay, should we do that so that she can be randomized in this?
so has everyone that wishes to speak as a possible candidate submitted a card already?
Let's see. So just last call, if anyone is here
Mari.
and would like to address the board for the board vacancy, I need you to fill out a blue card.
And
So
then
just
Amy, if
one
you could
more.
also fill one out for
Christine,
Ms. Schwartz,
sure.
yes.
So yes, all candidates shall fill out a speaker card, and a random order will be determined by selecting cards out of a raffle ticket drum. So Commissioner Sotovejil?
Yeah, so all the candidates are here with the exception of Jackson. Did staff
Yes,
connect with him to let him know?
Staff reached out to everyone.
Okay, all right, cool.
Yeah. I'm not sure if we heard back from him or not. Lynn did, but but we did reach out.
Commissioner Chan?
Please excuse me, but when does the public get to make comments about this?
Well, I would have liked, we asked for comments before this particular item. I was going to ask, but it doesn't seem like there's any.
I just have one card from someone who's speaking in support of a candidate, unless there are others.
Oh, okay.
So would the board like to do that before the
Yeah,
candidate
let's do
speak
that
or after?
before.
But you've done it both ways in the past, so.
Yeah,
it's whatever
yeah,
you
I
like
just
to do.
wanted any public comment to come, regarding this particular issue to come before.
Okay, so the only card I have,
Okay, thank you.
the only card I have for someone speaking in support of a candidate is
Okay. Oh,
So, Alfred Sopovejil. So I just wanted to also, while we're waiting, just to make sure that all board members received the report from the committee and that we distributed earlier. So that lays out both the process that's been followed thus far, as well as the process for conducting tonight's vote that you previously agreed to, and also copy of the press release that went out and the comments from board members, from the ad hoc committee members.
yes, actually, we do, three of the commissioners provided, three of the commissioners who were on the ad hoc committee did provide written comments regarding the candidates. Commissioner Leah Simon Weisberg was going to present hers orally. So, before we take, I just say what order we should provide our comments. So we could provide our comments. Yes, probably after everybody speaks. Okay, yeah. I mean, let's see. We're going to get our public comment, and then we're going to decide in what order we're going to do the drum and to see in what order the candidates will speak. And then we can provide our comments.
Can I make
I
a
guess,
suggestion?
go ahead, Commissioner Sotovejil.
The way I would like to see it flow is the public would make their comments, the ad hoc committee would make their statements, and then the candidates would be able to articulate new positions that we didn't articulate as reflecting our reflections of the ad hoc committee. Is that
So public comment,
public comment? Then it would be
The ad hoc committee?
committee, yeah, and then
the candidates,
and then the board, yeah.
the board, and then the candidates?
The candidates and then the board.
I agree with that. So let me make sure we do this right. So we're going to get our public comments, then the ad hoc committee, then the candidates, and then the board. correct? Okay, let's do it that way.
Excuse me, I apologize, Chair. I just want to make sure, because for two parts. Are we allowed as commissioners to ask certain questions?
Oh, yes.
And I guess, would that be during the part in which the board speaks?
Yes, it could be, yes, that's what we agreed about in our September meeting when we were talking about how we were going to do this.
Thanks for the clarification.
Okay. Okay, so if we're ready to go, let's take our public comment. Ms. Richie Smith?
Good evening, board members. I'm Richie Smith. I'm a member of Friends of Adeline, the activists of South Berkeley, Alcatraz, Adeline corridor. And I have worked with Mari Mendica for about 4 years or more, working on the Alcatraz, Adeline corridor, the campsites, and helping a senior retrieve his home that he was being deprived of. And Mari is very, very involved in all of these activities. She grew up here. We have that in common. I didn't grow up here, but I've been here since '49, so I'm really tied up with the community. I've seen it in its best and in between. And I'm sure that Mari will do a wonderful job of work on the board. She's dedicated to the community. She's dedicated to the residents. She's a very fair-minded person. She is dedicated to treating everyone fairly, listening to all of the ins and outs that's going on in the community. So I wholeheartedly support her for this position. She will add a lot to the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Next, we're going to go to the ad hoc committee's comments regarding the candidates. We had three references provided, or three written comments provided. So I'm going to start out with, to my left, I'm going to start out with Commissioner Sotovigil, if you want to make some comments. And then we'll go to Commissioner Solosky, Commissioner Simon Weisberg, and then myself.
Thank you. I'll try to make it brief. We have a long night ahead of us. There were 7 candidates, as you know. I broke it down to recommended and alternative recommendations. I'll start with the alternative recommendations first. Alfred Fu understands housing policy, really in-depth knowledge about local politics, and I think he's deserving of an appointment. However, I think based on my later comments, I think he should consider running in 2020. Nazreen Kadir, also fantastic brain, and the conversation was clear, concise, very intellectual in terms of her understanding of policy, city, state, national stuff. But I think given the short term, she also should consider running in 2020 at the tennis. I'm referring to the tennis convention, if that's the route you want to take, or just run independently. Jackson Hardiman, young guy who's a rising star and a leader in Berkeley already. He had a good, strong resume and references, but I also believe he needs to study more on the nuts and bolts of the rent stabilization program before entering what we do. Heidi Wagner definitely has firsthand experience with the process of being a tenant, as we just saw from the last appeal. She also would hit the ground running, as would Nazreen and Alfred. But I think given the pending case that was in front of us at the time today, and I think she's qualified to be a commissioner, you should also consider running in 2020. Andrew Marwitz, I like that he had experience with the rent stabilization ordinance as a landlord. However, some of his written responses and his articulation of those written responses didn't seem to me that he really intended to serve time on the board and put the necessary energy as he articulated both in his written statement and in his articulation at the committee meeting for that. And I wrote it in my write-up. When it comes to the two folks that I'm going to be supporting for tonight's 2 votes that I get is Mari Mendonca and Christine Schwartz. Mari clearly is a representative of the area that we're missing because of the vacancy we have, and that's Friends of Adeline, African American woman of color, progressive, housing activist, a union activist, and to me is a clear front runner for this appointment. And Christine Schwartz also has worked her tail off in numerous ways for this board, other commissions, city council, you name it. She's ready to serve at the drop of a vote. So those are my 2, and I'm concluded. And I just wanted to say thank the ad hoc committee. I want to thank them for meeting from 6 to 9 on a Sunday night. We all have children, some that are older and some that are young. But nonetheless, thank you for the meeting. It was important.
Thank you. Commissioner Solosky.
You know, my child's pretty old at this point. I want to thank the ad hoc committee, but I want to thank our candidates as well, all of them, for stepping forward and your willingness to take this on. Those of you here on the board, if you saw my written analysis, there's not much else I can add here. I thought 2 candidates really rose above the others, and that's Nazreen Kadir and Mari Mendonca. I give Nazreen just a slight nod because she has real diverse experience in many, many fields, both professionally and as a volunteer. And I'm impressed with her experience and her depth of knowledge in various areas. So that really did impress me. I'm impressed with Mari as well for her work in Friends of Adeline and South Berkeley. She clearly understands the needs of South Berkeley residents. She understands displacement, what this town is going through right now. I think both of them would be outstanding commissioners. And I'm going to leave it at that. I want others of the candidates to run in 2020. Alfred, I really want you to come to the convention and put your name forward. There are other people among the candidates who have a lot of potential, but they're not quite there yet compared to the top 2 in my mind. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Commissioner Simon Weisberg.
So I have a more selfish interest here because I'm one of the few people who will be running in the next election, and so you all will be my potential partners. And so I'm going to say that for me, Mari Mendoca was the person who I felt most strongly about being appointed for this position, and it's much what I would, echoing what my colleagues have talked about in terms of her community engagement, and I do feel like one of the pieces that we really are missing with Commissioner Murphy not being here is the depth of community connection that she brought. And I think Mari does that. I also feel that, I am on the Housing Advisory Commission with her and have seen, the depth that she also brings to the housing policy as a community member, and I think that there's there are lots of experts on that commission, and I think she's able to run with the best of us because she's incredibly bright, but also is able to bring a. I'm trying to find the word because it's almost like bringing the soul back into the conversation, and I think has really done some great guidance for us when we're in conversation, and I think that that same presence will serve us well on this commission. I also was very impressed with Ms. Kadir as well as Ms. Wagner, and I plead with you to please come to the tenant convention and run in 2020. Because we desperately need you, and I think you are both extraordinary, and I hope to have you as my running mates. So, and just really appreciate it. It's not easy to run. It's not easy to do this and to put yourself out there. And I still really feel that we need lots more candidates, not only us, obviously, for the rent board, but we are in a crisis of quality candidates across the board, whether it's council or supervisors. We all complain about Congress and all of these things, but then it's really hard to find solid folks. So I really thank you all, because we really had great folks to choose from, and it's nice to say, oh, this is really hard, because we had lots of great, strong candidates.
Thank you. I too have two top candidates. So my two top candidates, and similar scoring with Commissioner Solosky. So my two candidates are Nazreen Kadir and Mari Mendoca. Ms. Kadir not only brings, she's a retired professional with a background in science and community development, but she's actually formed a tenant organization in the building where she lives, which I think is really important, because we need leaders. We need people who can organize. And that's one of the reasons why I am really impressed with her, as well as Ms. Mendoca, who is actually very much involved in Friends of Adeline and organizing, because when we're able to bring people together, we get more things done, and we need to bring people together. So that's why I am, and those are the two candidates I am promoting. They bring strong connections to the community, they have experience organizing, and they have commitment, and plus that they bring a diversity that is lacking on the board. The other candidates brought a strong breadth of skills and experience. However, some were vague in their responses on the Rent Stabilization Board and good cause for eviction ordinance, and the roles that the Rent Stabilization Agency actually plays between tenant and landlord. But I would encourage Alfred to run, Ms. Wagner to run again. Because we do need some strong candidates. And I think it would be great to see you guys active. I know Alfred is very active in the community. Ms. Wagner is very come in and be more active with the community. Okay, thank you. Now it's going to be up to the candidates. First of all,
can I just say one last thing, please? Just 30
sure.
seconds. I tried when I first sought an appointment to the rent board. I didn't get it. And clearly I'm on this board, so don't take it as we don't think you're valuable. We absolutely do, and we want you to be here and take our place, but it's just not this day, I think. But nonetheless, I feel where you've been, okay? So don't be too hurt tonight when you go home, okay?
okay. So next is, so we're going to decide, Amy, we're going to decide in what order the candidates are going to speak.
So I gave everyone a piece of paper. and ask them to write their name
Yeah,
and
the
their
straw
first two
poll.
candidates, so I just need to collect those.
Okay, yes. So we're going to do a straw poll.
We have the speakers haven't spoken.
Yes.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry, you wanted the candidates to speak first.
Okay, but let's first, yeah, let's
Oh,
do the
right.
drum, let's do the drum roll first.
First.
Yes, and we can hear them speak. And then we'll do our straw poll. Yes. Yes,
So-
yes, yes.
Just for the record, I did add Christine Schwartz's name into the drum since she's not present.
Close your eyes. No, you got to pick. We have one person who's twirling it, and then here.
Oh, okay.
Close your eyes. Twirling something. Okay. Right. Straight. Okay. Let's read the entire order first. How's that?
So the first name randomly drawn is Nazreen Kadir. Nazreen Kadir.
Okay,
Let's pick them all, and then so people know the order.
okay.
Ready? There you go.
The second name randomly drawn is Mari Mendonca. The third name randomly drawn is Alfred Twu. The fourth name randomly drawn is Andrew Merowitz.
Say one.
The fifth name randomly drawn is Christine Schwartz.
I can handle this one.
Okay. And the final name left is Heidi Wagner. Yeah.
So we'll, well, I think we should give them 3 minutes. Yeah, we did it to say 3. And then questions, yes.
So each candidate gets 3 minutes, okay?
Yes. So I just want to make sure, we have Nazreen Kadir,
Correct?
Mari Mendoca,
Correct?
Alfred True,
Yes?
then it is Andrew Merowitz.
Merowitz, correct?
Merowitz, and then fifth is Heidi?
Christine Schwartz.
Oh, Christine, and then
Heidi Wagner.
fifth is Heidi Wagner. Okay.
Correct.
Chair?
Go ahead.
And just, I wanted to establish, so with the questions, we're asking them, we're going to ask them all at the end or in one by one?
Well, we're going to ask questions, we're going to let them all speak, as we decided in September, we're going to let them all speak, and then we're going to ask questions after they've all spoken.
Okay.
Go ahead, Commissioner Chang.
Just in the interest of time, obviously this might be a little harder, but it would be nice if we also do a time limit for each commissioner in terms of both questioning and speaking, if you're open to this. So for example, I know 10 minutes sounds like a long time, but it's better that each of us are limited to 10 minutes in terms of just questions that we ask, including the time in which the candidate who's asked the question gets the answer.
That would be very difficult to track with the
Okay,
mechanism
well
that
then
we
never
have.
mind. NVM.
If you'd like, I can set a timer, but it would be difficult to track how much of that time was the commissioner and how much was the candidate.
Well,
I can do that if you'd like.
Or if anything, can we just set a timer just so we all should be cognizant of time and we shouldn't take more than 10 minutes?
I can, whatever
most.
the board would like.
Yes.
Is it,
Go ahead, Commissioner Paulette.
is it possible to have each candidate speak and then have Q&A and try to do 10 minutes per candidate of their presentation and then 7 minutes of questions and answers? I know that's different than what we decided, but it would allow us to do that in a fair way.
Commissioner Alpert.
And sorry to go back to this, with the questions, if we ask them questions all at the end, we're going to have to call Christine back. And
Well,
I think
she'll be listening.
my feeling is just that I have different questions for different people. I don't want every person to ask, answer every question. I think it'd be a lot more efficient if we ask them individual questions while they're up. I don't know what the will of the board is.
Okay,
on that.
well then let's vote on it. So all those who want to ask questions after each candidate goes up, let me show, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, then we'll do that. What we're going to do is that each candidate's going to come up and give their presentation. They're all going to be asked, we're all going to ask questions.
Okay.
Let's do 10 minutes of questions.
Per commissioner?
Per candidate?
Per candidate, okay.
Is everyone in favor of that? Yes. Okay. Okay, I mean, some may go shorter, some may go longer.
We can suspend the rules if we need to.
Okay, so each candidate has 3 minutes to speak, and then immediately following that, the board would ask questions for roughly 7 minutes.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. Okay, then let's go with that. Let me see, want to make sure. So let's see, the candidates will fill out speaker card, and then the board members will discuss to select who to select and may ask candidates additional questions. So, and then the board will hold an open straw poll. Okay, just want to get clear. We're going to get the straw poll after all the candidates speak? Yes, okay. So, yes. Okay, so let's first have
The first speaker?
yes, the first candidate, Ms. Kadir.
Ms. Kadir, would you want to come to the podium?
And individuals can either speak at the podium, or if they feel more comfortable, sit down here.
Fine,
Okay,
standing,
good.
thanks. Is this on?
It is.
Can you hear me? Hi, good evening. I didn't know this was going to be this formal, it's going to go on for however, but anyway, I'm here. Don't know how long my voice would last, which is why I prepared the written statement to send to you guys. So if I may, I just read it. So, it is my honor to present the statement for your consideration of me to fill the vacant slot in the Berkeley Rent Stabilization Board. I believe you were provided with my resume and my responses to the candidate's questionnaire. I also have the honor, although with a much impaired voice, to speak by phone with members of the ad hoc committee. Therefore, this time, instead of repeating information already provided, I offer you a glimpse as to my reasons for pursuing the vacant slot and the services I can offer. I'm 71 years old, a retired professional living in an affordable housing building in Berkeley. Whereas I thought I would spend my retirement years pursuing my spiritual path, I was forced out of retirement to advocate for the elderly and disabled, most of whom suffer in silence. I soon realized from my review of the City of Berkeley's Adeline Corridor Plan, which, by the way, I spent about 30 hours reviewing the city's documents in recent months, the challenges elderly and disabled face with respect to housing are widespread in Berkeley. The Rent Board has an important mandate to regulate rents, prevent unfair evictions, and provide fair hearings to both tenants and landlord. I have observed Rent Board meetings, and I'm impressed with the professionalism of the staff. I have worked with not-for-profit boards and public sector agencies, as well as in the private sector. I have the knowledge, experience, and skills to analyze reports and data, to track how investments flow, to read an Excel spreadsheet, and interpret a budget. I have worked with communities of limited resources, both in the United States and abroad. I was born into and understand poverty. I identify with human suffering. At the same time, I'm well aware that the public and private sectors must work together in a mutually beneficial manner for the good of the whole. In Berkeley, private sector owns and controls most, if not all, of the housing stock. Based on the city's housing element data, private sector has more than met the housing quota for moderate income individuals. The situation is not the same for very low or low-income tenants. Through public policies, the situation needs to be rectified. The city has recently issued a social housing proposal. I'm not sure if that is what's being referred to as the framework this evening. If appointed to fill the vacant slot, I intend to hit the ground running. roll up my sleeves and work with the rent board, commissioners, and staff to be of service wherever I'm needed. I was asked by a member, I'm up? Sorry, you can read the rest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so who would like to start off with the questioning? I'll start actually to my right, Commissioner Alpert.
In your answer to the questionnaire, you brought up the issue of golden duplexes.
Of what, sorry?
Golden duplexes?
Golden duplexes.
Golden duplexes, I believe, owner, no? Maybe that was someone else.
Don't think it was me. I'm not familiar with the frame golden duplexes.
Let me just double check. Oh, that was someone else, I apologize. Are you familiar with the concept of the golden duplex?
Not particularly, no.
Okay, then I'll skip that question. You brought up the grand jury report a few times.
The what report?
Grand jury report?
Yeah, well, I mentioned that
Yeah.
I was familiar with it, yes.
Have you seen the rent board's response to the grand jury
I
report?
have, and it was done around shortly after.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have any thoughts about the response?
No, my feeling is that, well, it's, it's like any other hearing, it's any other challenge. There's certain points of view, and then the responses are based on facts, what the board was dealing with at the time. That's more than 7 years ago. So I don't really have any preferential positions at this time on that.
Okay. And my other question was going to be, in an ideal world, what would you view the housing? What would the housing market look like in an ideal world?
In an ideal world?
Yeah.
In terms of supply and demand, or in terms of rent, or?
You can take that question however you like.
Oh, well, I think in an ideal world, I think housing, health, education, food should all be basic human rights. We have homeless people in a country where we have billionaires, so we can afford it. And I do believe housing, shelter, education, and health are very, very key for growth and development from children to adults to seniors, from cradle to grave. So that would be my take on that.
All right, those are my questions. Thank you.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to allow you to, would you mind finish what you were going to say at the end of your speech, if you remember?
You mean continue reading?
You have it in front of you.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Okay.
Next question.
Okay.
Commissioner Traeger, do you have anything to ask?
Thank you. Just 2 questions, and thank you so much for applying. I was very impressed by your track record of distinction in a variety of roles. If you could boil it down to one quality that you feel would be a particular strength or asset that you would bring to the board if appointed, how would you summarize that?
You mean a personal quality of mine? I would say fairness. I think every human being, I think all 7 billion of us on this planet plus, we're wired the same way. We all deserve the same things. We have the same desires, regardless of where I travel, where I go. The same things drive humans. And so equality, being treated fairly, I think those are the key things.
Thank you.
Commissioner Simon Weisberg, do you have any questions? I'm going to go to Commissioner Poblet. I'll ask my questions in a minute, but I wanted to give you an opportunity. Do you have any questions? Okay. Commissioner Salaski.
I'm going to thank you, and I'm going to thank all the candidates for being here tonight. But I had my chance to ask. I was on the committee, so
Yeah.
I've asked a lot of questions, heard a lot of responses from other questions, so we can move on.
Okay. I did want to have one question. I know Commissioner Sotovejil.
Before I forget, I want to talk to you about the Adeline corridor. Okay?
Now?
No.
Oh, sure.
Later.
Sure, you can call me
We live on
anytime.
the same block, so I know where to find you.
All right.
So I want to ask you, Ms. Kadir, regarding your, can you share with us what other, I know you organize the tenants in your building. Can you talk about any other tenant organizations that you are a member of, either here in Berkeley or statewide?
Well, I am a member of the Berkeley Tenants Union. I'm a member of the Tenants Together. They track the state legislature. I'm very impressed with their analytical work and keeping track of all the bills and the changing ordinances and things. I'm a member of the National Association of Our Tenants. We have a phone conference once a month, and through them, we have an opportunity to keep track of the HUD rule changes that are coming down now, which was alluded to earlier. So I try to keep track of the national changes, especially with the present administration, and how it trickles down to folks at the local level. And then at the state level, I'd like to know what the state is doing, because when the governor came in, he said we had a surplus, he's going to apply to housing. I've been on video conferences with them where they have presented their plans. I've not heard a single thing. I've read these reports, these 5-year plans, these 1-year plans. Very little targets the elderly population or the disabled. And I'm very concerned about that. We have a growing, aging population. We have aging in place issues. I could write a case study of what I've experienced this year in my community, and it's really quite alarming. They're the population that's one voucher away, if you will, from homelessness. And I'm very concerned about that. So I think those are the key tenant groups that I'm involved with.
Okay, thank you very much. And, okay. Commissioner Trega, we have 30 seconds, so quick, and then Commissioner Alpert. So
My
quick
apologies.
responses.
One more question. I'm going to go back to the grand jury report since it was brought up, and you brought it up in your statement. And a key component of the grand jury report was the level of the registration fee at the time. So my question to you is, do you feel that the current registration fee level is appropriate for the services that it provides to the tenant and property owner community?
Motion to suspend the rules and allow the questions to go on for another 1 minute.
I agree, yes.
Second.
Would you like me to?
No, I think I get the question. I believe the present level is like $250. Is that the registration fee per property? Yeah. I must apologize. I requested the rent board's present budget, the 2019-2020, and I was going to read through to see what sort of, if there's any comments on the income flows from the landlords and things like that. And I've been really sick in bed for 2 weeks, so I think that would be something that I would be interested in looking at. Is it commensurate with what the private sector is earning? Is that, they need to be paying their fair share. They're always concerned about getting fair market returns on their investments. They also need to be paying into the pot proportionately. Some percentage the board needs to set. So I'm not sure 250 is a percentage of what, if that's a percentage of, if that's been discussed and that's policy. But that is something I would be interested in looking at.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That's it. That's all the time we have. That's all the time we have. Okay. So let's now go to, thank you very much, Ms. Kadir.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, now we go to our second candidate, Ms. Mari Mendoca.
Good evening. Thank you, board members, for having us. So I'm Mari Mendoza, and I feel like I would be an invaluable addition to the current board. I was born and raised in Berkeley, graduated from Berkeley High. I am a single parent, and I am the very constituency that the rent board was created to serve. I have always been low income, single parent, always been a tenant. I have been unhoused in Berkeley. I've been displaced from Berkeley. I've had the experience, which I think the life experience is something that informs one in a whole nother way than just specific like policy and, things that people can learn from reading documents and taking studies. But the lived experience is one that I think is an invaluable perspective, point of view. And in terms of the moment that we're in Berkeley and envisioning the kinds of things that are really going to make a difference, that are going to move us forward, that are going to be outside the box, I think are going to come from that lived experience. So.
Okay, thank you. So let's start. Commissioner Sotovejil, I wanted to start to my left. Do you have any questions for Ms. Mendota?
Sure. There's a big group back there. Who are they, and do they support you, or do they oppose you?
Yes. They're some are members of Friends of Adeline, some are other colleagues that I've worked with over the years, grew up with in Berkeley, have done things in community with folks for our young people. And
okay, thanks.
Commissioner Solosky.
Thank you for going through the process and coming tonight, but I don't have any questions for you. Thank you.
Commissioner Poblet.
I read in your statement about being a committee leader at Unite Here 2850, and I wanted to know if you could share your thoughts on how you work together to build a group that can change the conditions. It sounds like you're passionate about that, and even though this is a government body, it's still kind of a committee trying to change some conditions. So I wonder what you draw from that experience kind of about how to work in groups.
So initially when some colleagues actually started forming a union underground, and I didn't really know what was going on. And then when they brought it to my attention, I met with the union, met with the workers, and the whole thing was to be engaged with them to learn about like what was going on. In my department, they treated us differently than they treated the people in the other departments. So it took a commitment to spend time with the folks in the other departments to really see what kind of injustices that they were experiencing. And I've always just, I was just born with the heart to care about social justice and fairness and equity for folks. And so I kind of couldn't deny my participation. And so I became a committee leader, and I started speaking up to the bosses on behalf of some of my members of other shops within the job that I was at. So a lot of it is obviously outreaching, spending time with people, listening to their stories, sharing. We share many stories together that are similar, and it's really about listening and being with folks so that you can actually know what to do next.
Thank you.
I'll call myself because I'm next. Thank you so very much for applying. Can you share what has been the most revealing experience to you, or the most powerful experience being a member with Friends of Adeline, and how has that impacted you to want to run for office and get involved? How has Friends of Adeline really helped you and been transformative for you?
So I joined Friends of Adeline after the union experience, and was really seeing that there was a need for me to educate myself about the process, about the different systems in the community, and how to navigate that, and how to really support folks. And I knew Friends of Adeline was in the community, on the ground, running, creating different workshops, informing people of the things that were happening, of their rights and one of the first things that I actually went to was about tenants' rights. And I actually had been threatened from my property manager to be displaced. She wanted to buy me out, and she just called me and was like, how much, what did she say? She said, I was wondering when you plan on moving. Like, no hello, no nothing. And I was like, what are you talking about? So she offered to buy me out, and then at the end of the conversation threatened me that if I didn't take the offer, that I would no longer be, like, that wouldn't be on the table, and they're going to figure out a way to get me out. So that really got me to get more active, and joining Friends of Adeline, we've been working with members of council, speaking to them about the housing crisis that we're experiencing. And then one of the big things was Mr. Powell's case, which everybody talks about fighting displacement, yet I don't really hear a lot of stories of people actually taking action and doing something. And here, Mr. Powell and I work right near each other, and so we got into a conversation, and he had let me know that he was going through this experience. And so I invited him to come to Friends of Adeline, but also he had documents that I could bring. And so we all as a group worked together to kind of go through what was happening with him and then start advocating and speaking to people. And I think that's one of the biggest experiences that we've had, to show that just stepping up and taking action and having a voice and not being afraid to move forward is one of the biggest things that we need to do right now, is keep stepping up, keep showing up.
Thank you. I'm going to go down the line here. Does anyone else have any questions? Commissioner Trigub? No? Commissioner Chang?
Thank you. So earlier when we did action item A, item number 5, which had to do with the the framework, the Housing for a Diverse, Equity, Creative Berkeley framework. I know that you worked on it on the Housing Advisory Committee. I kind of just wanted to hear your thoughts and some of the input ideas that you've brought to the conversation, and how you see what you brought to that conversation, how you see you can bring that to this board as well.
One of the things with the framework is that I was noticing that a preference policy wasn't mentioned, so that was a huge important thing, because a lot of people think or don't acknowledge the things that have affected and displaced people. And so it's super important that we bring that back into the framework, that there are actually things in society and forces that have pushed people out, and the inequities that we've experienced in South Berkeley. Specifically, we've lost a lot of our African American population. And so that's one component that I highlighted for us to make sure that we're advocating in a big way, not just saying things. And another thing that I brought up was that, like, I went back and looked at the mission statement of the city and the core values, and it says a lot of lofty ideas about equity and justice and social justice, yet we're not pushing hard enough to support those folks who are underrepresented and affected by the change in market, the fact that we're not advocating for doing something to slow that market down and actually acknowledge the realities that people are living in terms of wages, in terms of the inflated costs of housing and other things.
Commissioner Alpert?
I was hoping you could speak to your thoughts on the topic of golden duplexes.
So I don't know a lot. I know that the golden duplex doesn't have rent control.
Right, or eviction control.
Huh?
Or eviction control. Or eviction control.
Eviction control, okay.
Or both, it doesn't have either.
Either one of those things. So, I mean, clearly that's not okay. Yeah, so there's definitely work that needs to be done around that in terms of policy.
Thank you very much. Okay, great, thank you.
Chair? Just for future question answers, I'm realizing, do you think it would be possible for the commissioners who weren't on the panel to ask the questions first? Because we haven't had a chance to ask questions yet, just so.
Not a problem. I wanted to go first this way and then this way, but this is good. Okay, so next up is Alfred.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Alfred Tu, and one of my aims in applying for the rent board vacancy is to bring a few things. The first one is more of a technical perspective. I studied architecture and have been working in that industry for the last dozen years, And so I know how to read the floor plans, so I understand the habitability codes and the planning codes. And the other thing is coalition building both at the local level and at the state level, making sure that we keep our local policies updated to take advantages of changes coming in from the state level, and also making sure that things happening at the state level are done in a way that work with what we're trying to do in protecting our tenants. The number one thing I really want to work on is expanding the number of rent-controlled homes in Berkeley, whether that's through division of single-family homes into rooming houses like the case you saw tonight, or with coming state law that may allow it to turn duplexes or into 4-unit buildings, which would bring the entire building under rent control if it was in the existing house. And also, I want to look at ways that we can really lead as an example and take what we're doing here in Berkeley and package it in a way so other cities can take up what we're doing and spread rent control and the protections it provides to more places. And I'll just keep it short. We'll take questions.
Okay, thank you. So let's start over here with Commissioner Alpert.
Hi, I'll ask the same question about golden duplexes if you have thoughts.
Yeah, so I think it's ridiculous that we still have the golden duplex exemption. Oakland has moved ahead of us on this. And I think we should work on phasing out that exemption. And also, now that state law allows both the ADU and the main house to be tenant occupied, we need to start looking at making sure that landlord ADUs get covered by rent control and close that loophole.
And then I'll ask the other question, which is, in an ideal world, what would the housing market look like?
Well, ideally, I would say single payer, just like with healthcare. Pragmatically, everyone should have a place to live, and everyone who's got a place to live already should be able to keep it. And that involves many things. That involves not cracking down on things like RVs. It involves the strongest possible rent control. It involves significant funding into affordable housing. And it also involves conversion of East Berkeley, which is mostly mansions, into apartment buildings, so that it's not just the Adeline corridor that's doing the new housing construction.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chang.
So I'm actually so glad you mentioned the hills needing to build up and not just have the Adeline corridor take, the main brunt of building tall buildings. I also know that, full disclosure, Alfred and I have been doing organizing work and a lot of political work together. And my short question is, as someone who has been part of the pro-housing, building more buildings, including more density, and also as someone who is who's someone who does identify as a socialist, and oftentimes the coalitions within each of the groups have very differing views. How do you see yourself being an actor in those spaces, and how do you see yourself bring those type of experiences into the rent board?
So what I really want to do is, for the rent board, is take rent control and not just make this a project of the progressive left, but of more of a universal project, understanding that rent control is an essential part of any housing policy. It protects tenants. It also channels investment away from these renovation, eviction processes and into actually building new housing. And from the production side, again, going back to the East Berkeley needs to do its part thing. I'm a tenant. I live in a accessory dwelling unit near the football stadium. And I really want to bring that kind of we got to build housing effort into that part of town, which has not been doing its part.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Traeger.
I have no questions, but I appreciated you putting down in your statement that you would like to see a Berkeley we can all call home.
Don't we all?
That was based on a video. Commissioner Problet.
Part of the challenge that I see is that there's an imbalance of political and economic power between landlords and tenants. And that makes it difficult for even the best policy solution to happen or happen well. How do you think about changing the balance of power?
I believe that's something we absolutely need to do, and we need to recognize that for every landlord, there are dozens of tenants. And rent control, one of the benefits it does have is that it allows tenants to stay and become part of their communities and really become part of the political process. And that's why I support policies both to strengthen rent control and also to create more apartments so that we have more tenants and a larger tenant vote in our city.
Thanks. Thank you.
Any questions from the ad hoc committee? Anybody? I do have one question. I just wanted for you to share with us what organizations you're with, like tenant organizations that you're with or are a member of here locally or on a state or national level.
Sure. So here in Berkeley, I'm part of the Berkeley Tenants Union. I also work with the group East Bay for Everyone that works on both protection issues as well as housing supply issues. And then at the state level, I'm involved with the California Renters Caucus within the California Democratic Party. And that's more about coordinating statewide legislation such as the Assembly Bill 1482 or the Senate bill that was about banning the Section 8 discrimination.
Great. Thank you very much, Alfred.
All right, thank you.
Okay, great. So next is Mr. Marwitz.
The simple question should be asked that's not being asked or answered is, why would a landlord want to be a landlord in this hostile environment? And you guys never put yourself in the shoes of the landlord. Yes, there's money involved, and certainly a lot of money involved for Costa-Hawkins exemptions, but for everybody else, it sucks. And you guys can't quite embrace that. And, you know, as Ms. Hunt said, tenants board and all that stuff. I don't want to be a landlord in such an environment. It's so difficult. We face obstacles in every direction, disadvantages. For the last 25 years, the rent boards, various people have created regulations for the purpose of protecting tenants, but they've created no legislation for landlords to protect landlords from a variety of scenarios. And it's disheartening. And you don't talk to landlords. And it's unfortunate because I just read an article today in Yahoo that the amount of housing that's being built went up by a little bit as a result of single-family dwellings. But the net result was it went down substantially because there's a big drop in multifamily housing. And it's going to continue that way. You guys don't want a landlord on your body, and you don't want to hear the other point of view. And for a variety of reasons, you picked very intellectual, articulate people, but you don't have a landlord to give the other point of view. And I've advocated for equal representation, equal protection, and that doesn't seem to resonate with you guys. It's unfortunate. It's going to be where our votes are going to be embodied into the lack of multifamily housing. And you guys can't change that. It's just going to be that landlords, developers, less landlords, developers are going to build alternate types of housing. And that's the way it's going to be. And until you embrace that landlords and tenants are the same, two sides of the same coin, you're not going to be effective at doing the ultimate purpose, which is creating more housing. And it's not going to happen. And you guys don't see that picture. You're just not embracing that. You're saying, well, let's tenants this, tenant that, golden duplex, let's get rid of that. Every aspect of this is disadvantaging landlords so they don't want to be in the business, respectfully. You guys are all articulate, intelligent people, but you're not recognizing that either deliberately or negligently. And I don't see you guys as being negligent. You're just not wanting to embrace that reality. 6 seconds. So there you go.
Okay, so let me start here on my left. Commissioner Poblet, any questions for Mr. Merowitz?
The Rent Board doesn't have jurisdiction around the creation of housing. Could you clarify some of the policies that you think would be important for the Rent Board to consider to address the issues that you raised around landlords' challenges?
I did briefly for the ad hoc committee, just a couple of points, and I didn't do it with great articulation, but I was just giving the essences because it was just, I'm not a great public speaker and I haven't had a lot of practice at it. But it just seems to me that everywhere I turn, I see disadvantages in the rules, in the regulations, in the decisions of the hearing examiners, the appeals. I see disadvantages. I see attorneys' fees being subjected to prevailing parties in every case, and you have anti-displacement funding up the wazoo for the Eviction Defense Center, so that landlords are afraid to be landlords. We shouldn't be subjected to such hardships on the other side of the money. Take away the money, and it's lousy to be a landlord. It literally is.
Okay. Commissioner Trigger, do you have a question? Commissioner Chang?
I just want to make sure you are currently a landlord in Berkeley, correct? Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Alpert, nothing? I do have one question. Oh, let me go with you, and then I'll ask my question last.
So in my written response to the interview and your written response, just want to see if you believe this statement that I wrote is true. The most troubling statement was offered in his written questionnaire, quote, "I do not intend to run for office in 2020. This position requires too much time and work and receives such little pay," end quote. And I wrote, "A rent board commissioner is a public servant and works to support society for little or no pay." Andrew's interview and written statements indicate that he plans to be a disruptive force and not put the necessary time into being effective commissioners. Do you agree to that? It seems that from your statements, that's true.
Disruptive is a real strong word. I want to impose my thoughts upon you guys as you're making your decisions, because everything, please correct, well, don't bother, it takes too much time, but everything that you guys seem to embrace is geared toward tenants. I can't see one thing that I've seen that says, let's do something for landlords that benefits regulation, whatever. And so I just wanted to not be disruptive, but to impose a second, and the other side of the coin point of view. I didn't expect much to be gained from it, because I figured 8-1, 7-2, that kind of stuff. And so it was an exercise in my mind of futility. But at the same time, I wanted to give you the other point of view to say, listen, if you don't contemplate these things, you're going to lose dances. You're going to lose people providing housing. Every way that you got, whether it's the owner occupancy thing, whether it's not creating ADUs, whether it's the Ellis Act, there's going to be less housing because everybody's going to want to get out of it in whatever, they're going to slip and slide, and you guys are going to create rules against that slip and slide. The new one I heard in San Francisco is corporate housing. That's going to be phased out. I'm sure they'll find a way. They'll find another way, because you're not giving us any avenues to enjoy providing housing and doing it in a way where we're not always at odds with the tenants and the rent boards.
Gotcha. I just wanted to clarify for the board and the public that we are not a tenant board. I have family members in Berkeley who own and rent property and are landlords, and I take that viewpoint into consideration to every single vote that we take. So it's
I'm not a tenant.
tenant board.
I'm not a tenant.
So I just wanted to clarify that. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm
Thank
happy.
you for-
You have parents who are doing the best they can for themselves. I'm a capitalist, not a socialist.
That's clear.
But I was homeless, and I worked my way out of it, too.
Great.
Not everybody's gifted with
Okay.
white privilege.
Okay.
Okay, so I guess my question is, where are you getting the statistics that less landlords are renting in Berkeley? And more importantly, like, where are you getting this, like, where is, like, is it not true that landlords are making more money than ever renting in the city of Berkeley? Like, so I just want to make sure that, you know, I want to know where you're getting your information from, that's it.
In terms of the supply of housing, I'll copy off the article that I just read this morning, and I'll print it up and give you a copy, and all of you as you see fit, or one, and then copy it off for everybody. Statistics are across the nation, not just California, but California's facing a special problem because of sanctuary state status. And the folks, the immigrants are coming up, and they're benefited by the fact that they can take up rooms and apartments just like anybody else in the city.
Mexicans?
Central Americans.
Come on, man.
But that's just one component. But in terms of the fact that people are trying to get out, it's clearly, it's obvious. I mean, you have to deal with all these appeals and hearings, and they're there for a reason. That's because landlords are trying to figure out a way to avoid the authority.
That's true. That's true. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Okay, actually, if you do decide to get out, please sell your property to the city of Berkeley so we can provide the land trust, to the land trust. That would be great. Thank you very much. Okay, so next we are going to go to our phone to Christine Schwartz.
Let me give
Is
Ms.
she on the
Schwartz
phone?
let me give Ms. Schwartz a call now.
Christine speaking.
Hi, Christine, it's Jay. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, I believe you.
Are we on?
We're on, and you're probably on delay, so you might want to turn your if you're video streaming, you might want to turn it off, and we start with 3 minutes, so whenever you're ready.
Yes, whenever you're ready, Christine. Thank you.
I'm here. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I wanted to thank the board for allowing me this opportunity to speak from afar. Thank you for your compassionate understanding, allowing me this opportunity while I'm dealing with this great tragedy that my family is experiencing, being forced out of their home. And I wanted to mention to the board reasons why I feel like I should be chosen for the replacement for Commissioner Christina Murphy. I'm sorry, I hear an echo. I feel like I've worked the hardest. I have supported you all, and I have supported City Council, progressive leaders, progressive issues. I have supported the TPO, affordable housing, including the Adeline Corridor project, anti-displacement funding, and fair chance ordinance, and many more things. I'm part of the BTU. I used to be part of the steering. I used to be part of Savo Island, Berkeley Search, ACE, and other organizations. I've been a long-term tenant here in Berkeley, there in Berkeley, since 1995. And I myself have experienced many issues that a rent-controlled long-term tenant deals with landlords. So I know about the issues, and I know about what people with disabilities deal with, seniors, low income, etc., people with no homes deal with. I feel like I would be a strong board member to add to the team in support of all the previous mentioned important and valuable progressive issues that the Berkeley Rent Board stands for. I thank you for this time, and I open up this time for questions.
Thank you, Christine. So I'm going to start over here with Commissioner Alpert.
Thoughts on golden duplexes?
It's a little difficult to hear.
Why don't I repeat it? Repeat, or, I'll pass the phone and then you can put it on your speaker.
Thoughts on golden duplexes?
Yeah, Christine, have you turned off the video?
My thoughts on golden duplexes is that I believe that they should have rent control as well as the apartments. I think that the crisis today is so dire, and we have more and more homeless, and it's just never ending, and we need regulations to control rent. That's my thoughts.
And then, in an ideal world, what do you think the housing market would look like?
In an ideal world, housing would be affordable for everyone, including homeless, in some way, some fashion. Food would not be a problem. Medical care would not be a problem. Everything would be attainable.
All right.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have else any questions? Commissioner Poblet?
Make sure to turn on your mic and put the...
Like this. Can you speak about the role of race and racism in the affordability crisis?
I believe that there is racism, that it exists, unfortunately, and not in every circumstance, but unfortunately it does exist. And I think that just like with the Fair Chance Ordinance, discrimination, racism, and anything else that gets in between life in terms of having health care, rent, or housing, food, that deals with discrimination, people who do that should be penalized. And there should be a process at which people can go and deal with these issues like court and perhaps the rent board.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's see. It's going to go James, and then I'll go back to you.
Hi, Christine. This is Commissioner Chang. My question is, I know that you've been a home care worker, and also you've done a lot of work with people who have health problems and also disabilities, and I kind of wanted to hear your experiences with that and how you see yourself bringing that to the Berkeley Rent Board.
Yes, thank you. I have been an in-home care worker since, I said 1997, but it was 98, I apologize. And I have experienced the difficulties of caring for adults with disability, who actually is a family member, and obtaining services on limited income is very, very difficult. And including dealing with housing issues and being denied services, etc. I see this happening not only in our instance, but with others. Did I pass a time limit or something?
Apologies. No, you're good.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And people who are homeless on the streets, they deserve a place to be, just like people with houses. So it's just a constant battle with people with disabilities trying to obtain housing, food. Somehow they just get stuck in a position or faced with circumstances that put them out in the streets easily, and there needs to be more protections for that. And I am a big advocate of that.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Christine. This is Alejandro.
Hi.
Can we hear okay? Yeah, okay.
Yes, I can hear you fine. Thank you.
Great. My question to you, I mean, not only are you unique in terms of having dramatically helped several of us through the years in a variety of different capacities, but you've experienced harassment from your landlord through the years as well. How will that experience transition to you as a board member? How would you use that to help you as a board member?
Well, I would use that component experience as insight to knowing signs of these types of issues that go on. And I would be compassionate in hearing from various tenants, or if they are experiencing the same thing. It's not just to deal with harassment and have to continue to live a life of, chaos, uncontrolled hostility, fear, intimidation, retaliation. I think I would be one of the board members that would be knowledgeable of this area in and out.
Cool. Well,
And apply it.
Right. Thank you so much. I don't know if anybody else has questions.
Okay, thank you, Christine.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Okay, so next is Ms. Wagner.
Thank you. Thank you all for allowing me to participate in this process. I prepared a small statement. I believe that housing is a basic human right. Secure, affordable housing is the cornerstone of a diverse and thriving community. Berkeley's rising rent costs are displacing families and eliminating the richness of what makes our city unique. Unaffordability is affecting many in our community, including our teachers and our public servants. Increasing the availability of affordable housing and effective regulation of the existing housing stock is imperative to building a stronger and more vibrant community. My family and I very recently defended our rights as tenants by navigating the laws, regulations, and procedures of the Berkeley Rent Stabilization Board. And we understand firsthand the stress and anxiety that accompanies a threat to secure and affordable housing. I understand how that stress can permeate all aspects of a family's life. In fact, our situation was not as bad as many of the other stories that I heard while waiting in the waiting room at the Rent Stabilization Board, where we were seeking assistance from counselors to understand our rights and responsibilities. That experience and the stories I overheard will stay with me for a very long time and has strengthened my desire to serve our community and to help shape policies that are related to the housing crisis in Berkeley. I have served in my professional role at the University of California, Berkeley for over 6 years. I've had the opportunity to run an organization there and work with large budgets, and at the School of Social Welfare affect people's lives that go out into the community and work. And this would be an opportunity to do something more direct. I'm currently in my second year at the Rosa Parks PTA Board as treasurer and have served on the School Governance Committee as well as the Berkeley Unified School District Parent Advisory Committee. I would like to expand my service to be more direct work and for the city of Berkeley by helping tenants and landlords understand their rights and responsibilities, by crafting and advocating for equitable and effective policy that stimulates affordable housing in Berkeley and strengthening the services for those in our community who are the most vulnerable. I also want to say that I've been able to listen to everybody else talk, so I have that advantage of hearing what everyone had to say, and I'm really moved by the passion that is heard from all of the candidates, the compassion that they all have for helping our community, and for really being a model for both the state and for our nation. So thank you again for allowing me to be participating in this process.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to start with Commissioner Poblet.
Congratulations on your, to you and your family. I wanted to ask you about how you see the role of race and racism in the housing affordability crisis.
I think racism is quite evident in our housing policies, as well as the historic disparate treatment of people based on the color of their skin. I think that we still have a lot of work to do to overcome the cumulative effect of racist policies that we've had in our country.
Thank you.
Commissioner Trego.
Thank you so much, and congratulations again. In your education process about our housing laws and policies, what is an example of a policy that, in your estimation, is not working as effectively as it should, that you might like to work on if appointed?
Well, I think I'll preempt Commissioner Alpert's question and say that the Golden Duplex rules, I feel there's improvement that could be made there.
Thank you.
Commissioner Chen.
I'm very excited that you work at UC Berkeley, Go Bears, and I kind of wanted to hear a little more about your experiences working there, and perhaps your experiences working with students, and how, as both a resident and also someone who works at UC Berkeley, how you can see you basically kind of bridging that two type of experiences. So I know I'm asking all conscious. Commissioner Solly Alpert and I were both technically student candidates, but how do you see your role on this board if you were to be selected?
I think that the pressure on our students for student housing is great. It is one of the major pressures that keeps coming up in surveys that we have with students. There isn't enough housing stock for them. I primarily worked and continue to work in an organization that's mostly graduate students, and that has a larger overlap of students with families looking for housing as well. It is a strong issue that has been coming up in students' individual cases, and also as an impediment to their ability to succeed academically in some cases. I have been very active on campus in a lot of service roles, and see the issue of housing, which is one of Chancellor Christ's major initiatives, as an important role. I would be able to work in between those two worlds.
Okay, Commissioner Alpert.
I guess I'm going to pry a little bit closer. You addressed Golden Duplexes directly in your statement. So if you have any specific ideas around how those rules should be changed.
Well, there was recently and this is also mimicked in the 1482 language about a living person. Mm-hmm. I think that that's a really important idea on whether or not who we're considering to be the resident that might be in a Golden Duplex. The clarifications around ADUs being bridged with the same rules as Golden Duplexes, I think that was some policy that came up within the last year, I think needs to be clarified too, as the reason we had the policy to begin with and whether or not it's still in effect. And there could be a variation, and to not maybe get rid of it all, but to get an idea of what could be either rent control or partial eviction control for those types of units. Our case had extensively, I learned a lot about that rule because of our case specifically, and the lengths that people will go to in order to try to find a loophole to enforce eviction.
And then in an ideal world, what would the housing market look like?
I think in an ideal world, housing wouldn't be a commodity, it'd be a resource that's regulated.
All right.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next step in the process is the commissioners, we're going to conduct a straw poll. Everyone was provided. Oh. Yeah, you're right, we need to discuss.
Board discussion before then.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for keeping me on task. Oh, so discussion, go ahead, Commissioner
Well,
Chang.
Actually, before we go into discussion, can I ask that we keep our comments under 2 minutes? And if we have additional comments, we keep it under 1 minute and no more than 2 additional comments. Is that okay with you?
I think it's fine with everyone.
Okay,
yes?
cool. So I would love to go first, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Sure. So I did get an email from Commissioner Christina Murphy, and she wanted me to read this. So she says that it would be an honor for Mari to have my seat. She represents the community. She represents the community that almost no longer exists, the African American community. She's smart, bright, strong, and she thinks outside the box kind of solution. And she's a friend of Adeline member. She'll be a great asset to the Berkeley Rent Stabilization Board. She'll be great, and the community supports Mari. Thank you, Friends of Adeline member, former Berkeley Rent Board Commissioner 2017, Commissioner Murphy. And that will actually be all of my comments.
Great. So Commissioner Alpert, do you have any comments?
I started off this morning thinking I knew who I was going to support, and I've ended the day undecided, which is the opposite of the direction I wanted to go in. I think we have a lot of very qualified candidates, particularly Nazreen, Mari, Alfred, and Heidi have all brought a lot of very interesting perspectives and a lot of background. I do have to I think we have to be particularly considerate of the seat that we are filling. The South Berkeley community is particularly unrepresented, throughout Berkeley, the African American community, the low-income community. But I'm torn. I think there are a lot of really great candidates. I want to make sure we have a commissioner who will be able to put the full work in required. I'm looking forward to hearing what other folks have to say.
Commissioner Traeger.
Thank you. I first wanted to thank all the applicants for coming forward. It's a courageous thing. And the loss of Christina Murphy on this board had left us with an indelible void. And hearing from each and every one of you today makes me feel better and more, it's comforting to know there are people in this community who care deeply about these issues that we strive to work on. And so this is going to be a phenomenally tough decision for me, all for good reason. And I want to thank everyone for creating that high bar. I'd like to thank Nazreen and Heidi for coming forward today. While they will be not in I'm limited to the 2 candidates that I can recommend tonight. I hope that both of you continue to be a part of our movement. To Christine, I have watched you grow into the policy advocacy that you do for 4 years now. And I'm so proud of you. And while sadly, I can't vote for you today as one of my top 2 choices. If I had 3 choices, I would vote for you as the 3rd. Mari and Alfred represent the soul of the Berkeley community in different ways. And for Mari, after 7 years of serving on the Housing Commission, I was comfortable leaving that spot because Mari came forward wishing to be appointed. It would be an honor to work with any one of you, frankly, if appointed. And I want to thank you all for coming forward.
Thank you. Commissioner Poblete.
I also wanted to thank everybody for the work that it takes to put yourself out there like that. to come here, to give a statement. It's nerve-wracking, it's difficult, and it's part of the bravery we need in this political moment to change things in our town and one policy at a time and in our whole country. So I hope that that continues. Whoever gets appointed that's just one part of the team. Like, our team is much bigger than the one position that we play at the rent board. And I really hope that this inspires all of us to keep working together. I did want to address a statement that the one candidate, Mr. Merowitz, who is no longer here, made, which is that the reason housing is unaffordable is that we are a sanctuary state and Central Americans are coming in. That's not based in fact, and it's dangerous racist rhetoric that I don't want to just go unquestioned. As somebody who worked on the sanctuary ordinance in San Francisco a long time ago, and on the state one, our community being welcoming and diverse is a core value that we hold, and it's part of the mission of the Rent Board to protect and defend the diversity that is a core value of our city.
Okay, thank you. The ad hoc committee members already provided some of their comments. So now,
I just want to say one thing.
go ahead, Mr. Commissioner.
To all the candidates out there, with the exception of Mr. Marowitz, I'm totally happy to help you because I'm getting termed out, prepare for the election in 2020. Gone through several election cycles in Berkeley, and I pretty much know quite a bit on how to strategize for that. So if you're interested, please reach out to me. I'm totally happy to do it because I hate this process of selecting one when there's many, many good people.
Then I'm going to turn it over again to Commissioner Chang, who has another comment.
Thank you. I just want to end by saying, this is not a tenants rent board. This is the people's rent board, and we are elected officials. I do want to demystify, and I'm so glad all of you applied, I do want to demystify the process by saying that I think most of you who applied, besides one particular individual who made racist comments, probably have more life experiences and are perhaps even more qualified than me when I ran. So I just want to empower all of you to continue to stay engaged and stay involved. And once again, let everybody know that this is not a tenants rent board, this is a people's rent board, and we are elected by the people of Berkeley.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Okay, so now we go to the straw poll. Excuse me. So each rent board commissioner was provided with a sheet of paper. They are to write their name on a piece of paper and put their first and their second choices on the piece of paper. The paper will be collected by, if you want to go and collect it, should we just pass it down to you?
He's always passing the hat around.
If you want.
He has a cold. What? You have a cold.
I'm not touching it, that's why.
Wasn't it on your head, though?
And the lucky lotto number is?
So I'm going to read this while those are being collected. So each board member will write down their first or second choices in order on a slip of paper with the voting commissioner's name at the top. Staff will collect and read the name of the member and their selections and tabulate the votes.
No preference.
Okay, so I'm going to continue reading. The candidate with the greatest total votes, combined first and second place votes in the straw poll, will be the first person for the board to formally consider and vote on. Okay, any candidate who does not receive any first or second place votes will be eliminated from consideration. Okay?
Okay, so I'm reading these aloud, and the executive director is going to tabulate. Is that correct? Okay. So Commissioner Sotovihil, his first choice was Mari Mendonça. Second choice is Christine Schwartz. Commissioner Alpert, his first choice was Alfred Tu. Second choice was Mari Mendonça. Commissioner Chang, first choice is Mari Mendonça. Second choice is Alfred Tu. Commissioner Tregub, first choice is Mari Mendonça. Second choice is Alfred Tu. Commissioner Solaski. First choice is Nazreen Kadir. Second choice is Mari Mendonça. Commissioner Poblet. First choice is Mari Mendonça. Second choice is Nazreen Kadir. Chair Laverde. First choice is Nazreen Kadir. Second choice is Mari Mendonça. And Vice Chair Simon Weisberg. First choice is Mari Mendonça, and there is no second choice.
So under your rules, it says the candidate with the greatest total votes, combined first and second place votes in the straw poll, will be the first person for the board to formally consider and vote on. So that's Mari, had the most total votes with, I believe, 8. 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Yes, with 8.
With 8 votes? So we should vote on this right now, but Commissioner Trego has a question or a comment.
I have a motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I move that we vote to appoint Mari Mendonça as our next Rent Board Commissioner.
Second.
All those in favor?
No.
We should do a roll call.
Yeah.
Yes, roll call.
Okay, so the
let's do
motion
roll
is,
call.
the motion is to nominate Mari Mendonça as our new commissioner, moved by Trego, seconded by Poblet. Commissioner Alpert.
Aye.
Commissioner Chang.
Yes.
Poblet.
Yes.
Solaski.
Yes.
Simon Weisberg.
Yes.
Sotovihil.
Pass. I'm joking, yes.
Commissioner Trego.
Yes.
Chair Laverde.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I know it's been a long night. Thank you. Thank you, Mari. We'll be hearing from you.
Now
We
you're
hope
in
to
for
see
it.
you. Yeah, we'll hope to see you here next month. And make sure you please contact the Executive Director, Jay Kalekian, because you need to get up to speed on some issues.
We'll be in touch shortly about the process with the city clerk and getting sworn in and that process, and then doing an orientation.
Can we take a recess?
Congratulations.
Yes. And I'm gonna take a recess, please. And we'll be back in 5 minutes.
Chair, could we do 10 for the captioner?
Yes, 10-minute recess.
Okay, thanks.
No, I want to go home, but people need to process.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I've got to say, the process itself was smoother than I know there was a lot of questions about process, but we're around, I guess, for no, I was not.
I mean, because, that's right, you know, hard last minute, which was great, but you were not around for the hard, right? I know that. She was both appointed and replaced. Yeah, that's what I meant, when she left. Yes, you were there for that one. The one before that was crazy. So it went, to me, I've been to 3 of them. So that was no action.
My question is, do you feel like, and I know I was kind of in the way, but do you feel like us? Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, the one thing that I would not just let them say stuff. I mean, it's just like, you know, it's like, you know, we get called out all the time. It's too much fun. But I thought, I mean, I'm really impressed with the yeah, I thought you were terrific. where you're actually seeking information. That's the good thing.
She does, like, let's be real. But I thought it was
And I thought that this was by far the most focused inquiry for a board for the selection process. Before, the board spent so much time on the process, and so little time on the actual presentations, because you guys were arguing about that things. And this time, there was just a few, there was mainly oh yeah, let's do it this way. Like, yeah, it's great. And that was great, because that makes the whole thing run so much more smoothly. But then the questions
Well, and I guess I'm repeating my question, but do you feel like even though, like I said, do you feel like it was important? I thought it was important. Do you feel like it is important for us to
I wasn't a part of the interview process this Sunday. I didn't pay much attention to the applications. But I was really impressed with particularly Alfred.
You know, you should look at his application.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I thought he was really smart.
Alfred.
Yeah, it's a lot. Remember the order?
So,
Oh yeah, Mari was on 8, Alfred was on 3, Christine was on 1, Nazreen was on 3.
yeah.
That's interesting. I think what's her name? That woman.
Wait, Nazir, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3. At one point, I wasn't sure if she was on 4 or not.
I think what's her name? The woman.
Heidi?
Heidi. I think she was a lot of people's third choice.
Yeah.
I think she would have been my 4th choice. I think it was Alfred, Mari, Nazreen, Heidi.
I have to say, I just realized Rosa might be in her department.
Oh boy. Oh well, better than last time.
We got it done.
Yeah.
and it's a good result.
And each time we're going to improve the process.
It's a good result.
Yeah.
We got the 2 appeals, everything's hunky-dory.
Yeah? Neither of the landlords showed up.
I know. Isn't that weird?
One of them told us they were going to come.
That's.
But then one of the ones who had a fucking lawyer. Jay said that the lawyer, that landlord has one of the worst lawyers in New York.
Peter, my son, texted me about, Peter said he was like, I don't know, he was trying to rearrange the furniture in there at EDC.
Well, we had a...
That was a nice way of saying he was out of control.
Didn't he get a restraining order against him?
Yeah.
Because he threatened to blow up the rest of
Something like that. Yeah.
Are you going to run for Red Board too? That's four.
It's a great school. Number 3 in the world.
No, but because I'm not.
Most you need to land.
You know that doesn't. And then the second part is like, he's like, the whole company.
No, yeah. When also, and then also no, he's beyond the same.
Yeah, like I'd rather be like.
Maybe we should have. That's actually really funny. We should have went there just to get people around, generate posts.
What's the big deal? Sell it.
If you can really collect dividends, then.
Oh, there.
Okay, I think.
Let's reconvene.
Okay, we're gonna come back in a minute, so a minute warning.
Try to be grown up about it. According to our regulations.
Minute warning.
Let's go, commissioners.
1 minute, Dougie Fresh.
Igor, you're summoned. Leah. Just want to shake your hands before you leave. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm calling back to order.
The question?
Yeah.
Nina worked with Mari on it, so yeah.
Leah.
15-second warning, 15 seconds. We all want to go home?
Commissioner Golden Duplex. She does. You try and make it your issue, but it's her issue. What are you talking I'm just fucking. What are we talking about?
Okay, so we have to. So I'm calling the meeting back to order. We have some agenda items we still have to go through. So information, announcements, and news articles in section number 9. So I think. Good night, Commissioner Solosky. Hope you feel better. So we have item 1, update on the status request for proposal of RFP for the database solution. Executive Director Kalekian, can you give us an update, please, on what the status is?
Yes, it'll be very brief. I'll have much more information for you next month, but we have received the request for proposals. We've opened them, and we're going to be doing, seeing demonstrations and doing interviews of the people who submitted responsive bids within the next 2 weeks. So we'll have some feedback about how responsive we felt they were, and better idea of what direction we want to go in after we've done that.
Okay, thank you. So next item is
I just want to let you know what's progressing.
Great. Well, thank you very much. So our next item is the distressed properties foreclosure report from the Eviction Section 8 Foreclosure Committee.
I put it in the packet. It's a standard report. I'm not sure if anybody from the committee has anything to say. I wasn't there that evening to participate in the discussion. So, but.
Okay, thank you. So next one is just the commissioner attendance at the board and committee meetings for the third quarter. I do suggest everyone look through them and make sure that they are attending their meetings. Thank you very much. The fourth is an update on recent and upcoming rent board outreach events. I know we had an eviction workshop last night. And I think there's nothing new about that. Unless you want to add something, Executive Director?
No, I'm looking for, I got an email, which I'm looking for earlier today to update me on on all the things we've been doing. You know what, maybe let's keep going and then I'll come back. Yeah.
Okay, and section number 5, is a September 20 report, and this is my submission, report from the California Homeless Youth Project by Nancy LePage titled Measuring Our Success, Campus Supports for College Students Experiencing Food and Housing Insecurity. I put this in the packet because it actually is a study looking at community colleges and universities, state universities, UC campuses, and Cal State campuses, looking to see what sort of services they're providing students. It bodes well for UC Berkeley because UC Berkeley does have a lot of programs for students. So I do recommend those of you who are interested to read what actually UC Berkeley is doing to help and assist students, because we know, as a report that came out last year or the year before, that 11% of Cal students have been, will be, and are homeless in Berkeley. Okay?
I have the outreach if you want.
Sure.
Okay. September 18th, Cal Counseling resumed. We held our first, and it's held on the first and third Wednesdays from 10 to 12 each week. October 2nd, we did some additional Cal Counseling events on campus. October 8th, Tenant 101 workshop. October 12th, we went to the Indigenous Peoples Day powwow. October 16th, eviction seminar for landlords. October 29th, we'll be counseling at the South Berkeley Senior Center. November 5th, we'll be doing a security deposits workshop. And those are the special events, and then, of course, the regular twice a week Cal Counseling.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 6 is an article from CNN.com that was provided by the executive director. It's about New York City judge recommends landlord pay $17,000 for threatening to call ICE on undocumented tenant. It's a good article for everyone to read. I recommend it, and I know the executive director does too. Item number 7 is the American Bar Association's Human Rights Magazine titled Adequate Housing is a Human Right. So it's an article I recommend everyone reads. And then the last item was one that I provided, was the LA Times article by Andrew Curry titled Landlords Say State Rent Caps May Force Them to Raise Rents More Frequently, which is based on the landlord saying that as a passage of AB 1482, they now have to raise rents 5% plus CPI because they can. So anyways, that's the end of the information items. Hopefully you'll get a chance to review some of those articles and some of those reports. They're very enlightening. Okay, so now we're going to section 10, committee board meeting updates and announcements. So let's start with the budget and personnel.
We do not have a meeting currently scheduled. Should that change in the next month, members will be informed.
Thank you. Eviction Section 8 foreclosure update?
Our meeting is scheduled for November 5th at 5 p.m.
Thank you. The Habitable and Sustainable Housing Hash Committee?
We have not actually picked a date for our next meeting, but we've sent out many emails. No worries. We will hopefully meet, and well, I'm expecting our committee to meet in November, and we hope to continue to work on what we've talked about last meeting.
Okay, so I just have a question. So are you having a problem with quorum, or just people?
It's well. So the first one was that nobody responded, but the second one, as chair, I just called for a meeting, but the issue is that we don't have proper staffing, so we're going to have to pick another date. But what I will say is that if commissioners do not respond, we are going to proceed with the meeting, and it's just going to state that you decided not to show up.
Okay, so yeah, I just want to bring up, it's important that as elected officials, one of our jobs is to actually attend these meetings and make yourself available for meetings. So I encourage you all to please be conscious of your responsibility as an elected official. Okay, so the IRA, AGA, and Registration Committee?
So we did meet, and obviously we, as we all voted on, did declare the AGA for this year. And then we did also have both the Eviction Defense Center and East Bay Community Law Center both sent staff to kind of address the question of what could we be doing to further strengthen our tenant protections based on their experience representing tenants. And so they both gave a presentation and have followed up with additional written suggestions. And then obviously we went over the framework and got feedback as well on that. So that was really helpful to have those community institutions providing us kind of a take on what it's like in the trenches. And we are meeting again the first Thursday of November, which is our regular standing meeting.
Okay, thank you. Outreach?
Yes, we will be scheduling a time to meet in November as soon as we get a updated report on the status of our census.
Thank you very much. So the 4x4 Joint Committee, we are having a meeting later this month. I want to say that it's October 23rd. We're going to be meeting. Thank you. Any update on the ad hoc committee on technology issues?
Yes, so I know Commissioner Solosky tested out the computers last month. I tested it out this month, and now that we've both tested it, Amy will help us find a date to meet, hopefully, if not late October, early November, but it's just a two-person committee, so it should be easy to schedule. And we will report back.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's all. That's all the committee updates that we have. I would like, go ahead, Commissioner Sotovejil.
So it says on our agenda, the 2x2x2, and I know that that hasn't been formally agreed upon by the school board nor city council. I think we should probably take that off because I know one of the applicants had put that on as a preferred committee, and it's not even a real thing.
Yeah, excellent point. Excellent. Commissioner Alpert.
I agree, but I also think, and it's unfortunate that committee hasn't been reformed, and I don't think that's on our part. So perhaps we could schedule for either a future council meeting or a future subcommittee meeting the topic of restarting the 2x2x2. It never existed at all.
They've never agreed to participate in it, the school board.
The 2x2 is school board and council, but they've never agreed to have us participate. So then perhaps could we schedule for a future agenda formal, I guess another formal request that happen, just to try to get the ball rolling again?
Go ahead, Commissioner Poblet.
It seems like something aligned with the level of cooperation across departments that's in the framework, so maybe that's another opportunity to raise that as that gets implemented. That also brings up the question of the committee with the student government that we had talked about at a certain point,
Yeah.
which I think we should re-raise.
Yes.
Commissioner Triggle was first, but.
No, please.
No, okay.
You go ahead.
I just, the feedback that I got from particularly the school district was that if there were ongoing issues, they'd be happy to meet with us, or if issues arose. So there wasn't a lack of willingness. They just weren't sure. Both the council as well as the school board said they have difficulties coordinating the 2x2, and so they wanted to be clear that we weren't excluded from if housing issues or overlapping issues came up. And in fact, if anything did, we're free to put something on, and either as individuals or on an ad hoc basis, they'd be happy to meet with us. So I don't want it, I just want to be clear that it's not that we're not going to talk about these things with the board. It's more just, rather than formalizing something, addressing them when something arises.
Thank you. Commissioner Trego.
Well, this is not formally on the agenda, but the 2x2x2 committee is, so that's how I'm going to frame it. So when James Solly and I attended a conference in North Carolina over the weekend, there was a lot of interest by electeds from all over the nation about our Measure AA and the fact that there is a moratorium on owner move-in evictions in the middle of a school year to families with minors. So that, for instance, sounds like a great issue for a 2x2x2 committee to take up to study how well it's working. And there's so many other evictions that are different than owner move-in evictions that are protected. It would be interesting to see if there are any cases where families with kids in BUSD schools are being evicted in the middle of the school year and the impact that has. So there's no shortage of issues actually to study. I would love to see a 2x2x2 formal request. It is a new BUSD board this year. And I think there is a global understanding, kind of in line with Commissioner Poblet's comments about how this really has to require interdepartmental action.
Hold on, Commissioner Chang and then Commissioner Simon Weisberg.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe the outreach committee could take this on as a subject as to how we can outreach to the two bodies in terms of communicating that. Or, well, I'm just thinking like maybe one of us can speak at one of the 2x2 meetings to be like, hey, we would like to have this. Or have one of us speak at council to say that we want to have this, or have one of us speak at school board to say we want this. We don't have to say this, it doesn't have to be from the rent board, it could be as, and using our individual capacity. And then, of course, just want to echo what the commissioner said. Commissioner Trigub said, like, we asked for this committee to happen because there is a need for housing. Student success is based on their housing, and also finally, like in New York, we know that kids get sent home with a paper saying that, you know, you are entitled to have heat in your house. Like, I don't know if the school board provides that. I don't know anything about the school board, and these are just things that we should talk about to just know and provide, like, and that's why I mentioned outreach, because, you know, that's like things that I want to know about.
Thank you, Commissioner Simon Weisberg.
Actually, the piece that you were saying at the end was what I wanted to talk about. So each school has an engagement, parent engagement person, and I think that would be, I think all of those folks would really benefit from having a meeting with one of our counselors to get general information. And we do put an advertisement in. Most of the schools have directories, and there's a rent board advertisement in them that we pay for. But I think there's no reason why we can't provide, you know, some kind of sheet at the beginning of every year for folks to know about the rent board. And I think I've shared with this before that I, you know, pretty much on a monthly basis get contacted by a teacher that's facing some kind of housing issue. I mean, and that's just from one school. And so I think that there is lots of kind of information, and I do, you know, that I think that could be one of our asks. And so I think that alone is a topic as to how to better use the school system to make sure that folks are accessing the rent board as easily as possible.
And I hope you don't mind, and I just want to make it very clear, like, I mean, if the staff could let me know, or whoever, like, I don't have an interest in necessarily serving on the board, but I certainly have an interest in helping form the board. So if I could, form the committee. So like, if I could speak at council or at the school board meeting, or ideally at the 2x2 committee with council and school board, that would be ideal.
I just think that usually the protocol is that the chair speaks with the chair of the rent board, or staff talk to them. Usually, I don't think we want to.
Oh, yeah, or that. So that's what I'm saying. Okay, cool.
Thank you. So we are now going to adjourn, and Commissioner Trega, because you were the man with all the names, I know, can you repeat who we are adjourning in honor of, besides Mr.
I'll move adjournment in honor and memory of Representative Elijah Cummins.
Yes.
Michael Deal, and Frank Alkin.
Okay, so in their honor, we're adjourning. Call this meeting done.